Titanic, Sense and Sensibility, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, The Holiday. The list of famous movies just goes on and on and on. In this class, as you might have guessed, we're typing none other than English actress Kate Winslet. She's not just a celebrated Oscar-winning actress on screen, but she also turns out to be one of the best natural storytellers that we've ever seen since we started typing.
Yeah.
And her parts might actually have a lot to do with it too. Holly and I have a combined typing experience for more than 5 years now, I think. And more recently, we started typing additional celebrities while getting coached by Shan from Objective Personality. Which means that yes, the type that we reveal in this video has been confirmed by Shan and Dave. Holly and I are doing these classes because we want to share our typing journey from the perspective of a student, to share where we struggle and how we're making progress.
Okay, so starting with biases, my initial bias was that she was some kind of ESFJ. Visually, she reminded me of Rachel Weisz, who is double feminine FENE, play, consume, sleep, blast. Mm-hmm. What was your bias?
Yeah, it was just the same. She reminded me of Rachel, so I thought maybe she's FENE, or in that ballpark at least. But I never watched interviews with her, so all my impressions really came from the movies. And I kind of expected her to be a little bit prickly just because she has very often very serious roles and serious movies. She has like a certain severity.
Maybe it's just being English.
But maybe it's just being English. Who knows? But we really had some surprises coming our way.
So the first coin that we want to look at is one that we thought was the most obvious when you start looking at Kate. So let's take a look at DE versus DI. But before we take a look at the first clip, let's just quickly go over the definitions of what DE and DI actually are. So DE will tell a we story, they can't help but drag others in, there's always a void in what they want, and they'll feel like they are not allowed to have what they want. On the other side, DI is a me story. They will talk about what they want, they'll know what they want, they will feel allowed to have and do what they want, and they will leave the tribe behind.
Kate, I have the feeling that this wasn't the easiest movie on the actors. For instance, the scenes where you're in the rain and you're soaking wet.
Yes.
Now, I know England, and it's very cold there.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. We were frozen. We were chilled to the bone, Emily and Greg and I, doing those scenes, and they took a couple of days. And no, I actually, I insisted on throwing myself down that hill. And there was a stunt girl there, and she was great, and she was really happy to do it for me, and she did it a couple of times and showed me how to do it. And you know, I said that I really would like to do it, and I kind of felt that it was sort of fair on everybody, really, because when you do have a stunt person, I think you do have to adjust the shot so that you don't see their face, and I didn't really want that to have to happen, and I wanted it to be me as well. I wanted to just be Marianne and chuck myself down that hill. And so I was kind of battered and bruised from that. And then I remember at the end of one of the days, it got to about 6 o'clock in the evening, and I mean, we were just so chilled, so cold. And Ang was saying, you know, just one more take, I just want to do it one more time. And, you know, I was saying, oh yeah, fine, you know, let's keep going. And we all had to be like that, you know, really good about it and giggle and just say, oh, isn't this fun? We're soaking wet, but what the hell? And I fainted. I just passed out because I just had gone numb, completely numb, and I couldn't feel anything, and I fell over. And I was so aware of everything. Everybody was kind of panicking, saying, oh my God, she's passed out, and bundling me into the back of this Range Rover to climb up this very steep hill and get me dry. But it was just, I mean, I wanted to laugh. It was just so funny in some kind of bizarre way that I just kind of fainted in the middle of this field. But no, it was hard on everybody, and it was hard on the crew too. I mean, we did have really long hours, as you do on a film.
Okay, so there's obviously quite a lot going on here, and just for reference, the interviewer here is an ESFJ, so she's got lead FE, and she's going to be asking tribe-related questions, which she does. She asks Kate this tribe-related question. So Kate immediately starts by talking about how everyone else is feeling. It is a we story right from the start. But then she goes on to talk about her stunts and wanting to do her own stunts, so that it is fair on the crew, so that she's not the only one not doing her stunts. So this is another like Fairsies kind of situation that she's picking out here in this clip.
From the start, we saw this kind of we story from Kate consistently. So we conjectured, yes, she's probably Savior DE, but a few questions remain. So is this FE or TE? And we also always need to look for the cross-check. So we know she can tell the we story, but what can't she do? This is really the deciding factor. So let's take another clip and see what kind of demon DI this might be.
I was terrified of playing this part. I just thought, I can't do it. I kept saying to my husband, just phone them up and just say, no, she's not going to do it. here's a list of excellent alternatives. And I'd actually made a list of people. I was like, they would be so much better than me.
Okay, so in this clip we see what Kate really can't do. She can't talk about herself in a calm, obvious way. So she's up for this new role for a new TV show, and she's terrified of it. She thinks she can't do it. She thinks everybody else that I'm looking at is so much better than me. And then she brings in her husband, and her husband had to tell someone else, no, she cannot do it. And here's the list of all the people that I'm tracking that are so much better than me. So someone as acclaimed as Kate Winslet, like an Oscar-winning actress, and this was fairly recently, just a few years ago, is unsure about what she can do and where she belongs on the spectrum, while everyone else sees it clearly. Like Jimmy immediately jumps in and corrects her and tells her how great she is on that role. And so this is what we mean by demon energy. This is what we mean by cross-check, when we see, okay, we see you do the tribe talk, can you do the me talk? And she cannot do it normally, not in a demon state. And it's really about what she can do. So Holly already hinted at that what she's tracking about the tribe is the feelings, how they're doing, and what she's struggling with are her own capabilities, her own skills that she's unfortunately not really tracking, which doesn't mean she doesn't have them, but it's not really conscious. So Kate is Savior FE with Demon TI. But now the question is, are those functions in the middle or at the poles? So let's look at Kate as a decider or an observer. The both of us went in with the bias that she might be a decider, but in the beginning we had a hard time proving it, because generally she came across as very friendly, very easygoing, not necessarily nervous, just very composed in a non-standoffish way, to be honest. But each time we caught a spike, it was about a topic like this.
If I could turn back the clock, I would have used my voice in a completely different way. I would have said to journalists, I would have responded. I would have said, don't you dare treat me like this. I'm a young woman. Yeah. My body's changing. I'm figuring it out. I'm deeply insecure. I'm terrified. Don't make this any harder than it already is. That's bullying, you know, and actually borderline abusive, I would say.
1,000%.
And now that wouldn't happen. And if it did happen, a young actor would truly respond in exactly the way I just did.
Right.
But also, you know, there's this nonsense of like commenting on bodies and how women look. It's getting better, but we've still got such a ways to go.
It's so ingrained in a disgusting way that it's
also,
hard to...
Even if an actress walks out on a red carpet and happens to look amazing in whatever she's wearing, the fact that people will say, looking, you know, cuts a fine figure,
right,
looks honed and toned, or that dreadful word, svelte.
Right.
Don't even say it. We don't say that about the men. It's such an irresponsible thing to do, and it feeds directly into young women aspiring to ideas of perfection that don't exist, aspiring to have bodies that, you know, the press are saying that we have.
Yeah.
It's for that. It's for one night and one night only that we're in that damn dress. And believe you me, mine comes straight off the second I'm in the car on the way home and I'm in my pajamas. That is how it is. Like, I'm right there eating chips and farting. That's what we do.
So here she talks about how she was treated and bullied, frankly, by journalists in the mid-90s when she was quite young, after Titanic came out. And to be clear, what we're tracking is not is what she's saying is right or is it wrong. We're really tracking her emotional state. So in this moment, she's angry, she's really ranting. It really has a different vibe than the rest of the quite longish interview. And why is she ranting? Why is she still stuck about the situation? It was frankly quite hard for a young actress, to be sure, in any sense, because it was about judgment. It was like how the tribe saw her and how the tribe mistreated her. She's still not over it. She's still angry about it. So here she is in this demon state about tribe judgment. So probably a decider.
As Felix has just pointed out, we are seeing that Kate is actually a decider. But before we go any further, let's just kind of have a look at the definitions of observer decider, just to kind of close this chapter out. The definition for a decider is they're stuck on people, they're stuck on judgment, are things fair or not, and they're not stuck on missing information. For an observer, they are stuck on the information and the pathways, and they're usually not stuck on others' points of view. They are aware of their own, and they are aware of others, and they're not stuck there. Now, an important cross-check if you're seeing someone as a decider is you should be able to see them double observing. So, let's watch this clip and see if Kate is freaking out about the things or not.
So we were sort of told that you were coming in to do, well, I thought it was just like a reading. We were just going to like have a fun read of the script. I didn't realise you were auditioning for the part. I'm so sorry you didn't get it. And I'm also sorry. I'm sorry if I happened to have been mean to you in any way or rude. I don't think I was. I'm just checking.
No, you don't know.
Okay,
Yeah, no,
good.
you were so nice.
Okay, good. And you were sick, I remember. You were very sick and you were obsessively hand sanitising. And I thought, OK, he's one of those people.
What?
And then COVID happened and I was like, I'm going to be one of those people.
No, that's not way. I was doing that? I remember.
You were very sick, I remember.
I think I was sick, but I was like, this is the opportunity of a lifetime to act with you guys. Were we in like a hotel room?
It was a hotel room somewhere. I don't remember where. Somewhere in the Upper East Side. And Robert Downey did an English accent, but I thought he was doing Australian.
He was doing Australian.
And I thought, that's bad. That's not going to work. And who's going to tell him that that sounds dreadful?
I think it was an Australian accent, and I think it sounded great. And I go, this is perfect, but I don't think the character's supposed to be Australian.
It wasn't actually that great, but that's really sweet.
In this clip, Jimmy here, who is an observer, he is a double feminine, N-I-F-E, blast, play, consume, sleep. And Kate is making fun of him for being one of those people who sanitizes. So Jimmy's a little bit of a germaphobe. In this story, he was sick and he was obsessively sanitizing, which Kate points out as something that she sees as funny, and then also makes a joke about how when COVID came, she was going to be one of those people who was obsessively sanitizing. And then she also goes on to make fun of other people and their accents and how they weren't very good and how the accents weren't actually accurate either. So she's just playing this game of, I'm watching you do weird things with the observations and I'm making fun of you, I'm not taking it seriously. So this is double observing, not taking the observations too seriously. So far we're seeing that Kate is savvy FE and a decider, so that makes her an EJ. So the next one we're going to look at is she OE or is she OI? But before we watch this next clip, let's just get loaded up on the definitions of what OE is versus OI. So the definition of OE is channel changing, has the we'll see, says that they want control, but they actually don't. Savior OI will always have a way. They will tell the same story. They need to conclude and narrow down, and they will shove away new.
I mean, because it's not about, to me, it's not about, you know, making heaps of money and being famous. And in fact, quite the opposite. I really would work for nothing, and I don't particularly want to be famous. The sort of financial side of it, to me, is an absolute bonus, and it means that I can take care of people that I love. I mean, I can help out my family a lot and things like that, and help out friends who are often, you know, totally desperate and things. But no, it's about work, and I love it. I love acting so much, and just consider myself so lucky that, you know, that the work is consistent, or certainly seems to be at the moment, and still carry that mentality of, well, you know, it's great today, but tomorrow I might not be in work. So seize the day and get on with it. That's what I say.
Seize the day and get on with it. I don't think I have seen a kind of better way of saying we'll see than this. Here she's saying that she just lives in the moment because she accepts that things are going to change. So this is OE accepting that there doesn't need to be a plan because life changes. Every day is different, and she very easily accepts that. She also talks about saying that she considers herself lucky that the work is consistent, because this is something that she's obviously not obligated to do for herself, to kind of set consistent work, go out and look for work, create a plan for upcoming work. That is not something that she is doing for herself. We often also see that the lucky is kind of tied to the specialists, so the number 3s and number 4s. So just a little hint there for her social type. Now we've confirmed that Kate is Saviour OE. What kind of OE is this? Is she SE or is she rather NE? So let's take a look at this clip and have a look. Is it NE or is it SE?
I'm in Australia shooting this film, and the hair and makeup artist on that movie is a woman named Ivana Primorac, who I've been fortunate to work with several times before. She does a lot with Stephen Daldry, so I'd worked with her on The Reader. She's also done a lot with Joe Wright. She did Atonement. She did Anna Karenina. She's a wonderful woman. We were talking about what was happening next for each of us. I was coming up on a big, lovely break from having done quite a lot of work and had a baby. And she said, oh, well, I might be going to San Francisco to do this film. Scott Rudin sent me the script. Danny Boyle's interested in me to design the whole thing. It's about Steve Jobs, written by Aaron Sorkin. Wow. So we're chit-chat. And there was sort of a different instalment each day for about a week of, how things were going. Michael Fassbender, was he going to do it? Was it really going to work out with her and schedule? And finally, after about 4 days, I said to her, what's it about? She went, oh, it's brilliant. Written in 3 acts. And she described the whole thing. And I went, what's the girl's part? Because, of course, I knew there would be one. And she suddenly went, she kind of clutched my shoulders. We're staring at each other in the reflection because she's putting my wig on at the time. She went, oh my God, well, oh my God, well, they haven't cast it. Oh, it's a wonderful role. Okay, we have to get someone to send you the script. So all this goes, I'm thinking, okay, well, I'd better phone my agent. So I called my agent and I said, what's happening with that? She said, actually, they're not really focused on casting the Joanna role right now because they've been thinking so much about making sure they nail who's playing Steve Jobs properly, etc. Anyway, it went through 48 hours of this kind of back and forth, and finally I thought, they don't have their head around the idea of me playing this part. She's a fairly short, very Eastern European looking woman. So I thought, well, maybe I need to get them to exercise their imagination just a little bit. So I asked my lovely husband Ned if while I was at work he would go to a wig shop and if he would buy 3 dark-haired wigs for me. I'd Googled Joanna Hoffman, there's like 2 images of her online. So he goes to the shop and he buys me 3 different wigs and we select the one that looks kind of appropriate, and I kind of push it into a sort of an 80s sort of style and throw on some glasses, clean my face of makeup, and I take one photo of myself, literally a selfie, and I sent it to Scott Rudin, who I'm fortunate to have a relationship with, and then I get a message saying, the script's coming your way.
So in this clip, you will hear Kate give a lot of sensory. So while she's telling this story, you're not getting lost about what is actually happening. So she's giving a lot of overview talk, but then she is actually filling in the gaps with the sensory. So this is double observing. So overview, sensory, and double observing. But what is funny and interesting about this story is when she's telling it, she is talking about how she is having this conversation with her stylist, and they have a conversation back and forth about this specific topic for about 4 days. And it's not until the 4th day that she actually asks about the detail of what this movie script is about. And then she makes an assumption that there is a female part. And she just says, well, of course, I knew there would be one. Like, it's just obvious. Of course there would be one. Now, that is a savior state guess. So that is intuition there, just in a savior state, guessing that there would be something happening in this movie. And when she's talking about getting the wigs and taking the selfie to send to the director, she's wanting to get him to exercise his imagination to see her in this role. This is also another example of her kind of intuiting what might be going on in other people's heads.
But in all honesty, we had a really hard time with the sensory intuition coin for the time that we had, because we were hearing like so much sensory, and there wasn't a lack of clarity in how she told these stories. And as Holly pointed out, when she uses the intuition, you can very easily miss it, but it's still in an obvious throwaway savior state. But then can we cross-check that again? Do we see the demon sensory? And yes, we do.
And let's face it, you've done Titanic, so...
Well, this is the thing. I have all this water experience. And so when I walk onto a set and I say, okay, I need to check everything, and I do all these sort of weird water checks that I must have learnt on Titanic. So I'll check the temperature of the water, and I did say to them, I said, guys, that water is too hot. And they were like, oh no, we've heated it for you. I said, that's very kind of you, but it's steaming. It's meant to be cold. When the cold water from the rain towers hits the warm water from that's going to create more steam. This is never going to work. It's not meant to be hot water. So I'm telling them all these things because I did learn all that.
In most cases, if you have a function as your savior, you do actually use it more. But if you see something out of context, or especially if that demon is masculine, you might actually see a lot of that demon, especially if it's not last. So what is the deciding factor if you want to figure out a coin? It's always the state. So when Kate uses intuition, it's like, I obviously guessed that, whatever. But when Kate did something in the sensory and knows something about the sensory, and it's not that she doesn't know what she's talking about, but what does her state say? It almost looks childlike, like, hey, look at me, look at what I learned about how water works because I did Titanic. Hey guys, this is how it works. This is the right thing. She is peacocking. She wants others to pay attention. Figuring out the technicalities of a water shoot is not obvious to her. So the sensory is the demon. I already hinted at it. The sensory is her masculine function. It's what she's fighting with, which we could see in the last clip. But masculine sensory is also about like tracking movement and weight and paying attention to that and then bringing it up again in conversation. So let's see an example of how she does that too.
I do have a decent understanding of water and how it behaves.
You more than most, yes.
I really do, okay? But not just that in my own life. Like, we paddleboard, we surf, we kite surf. I don't actually like kiteboarding as much as my husband does and is extremely good at it. I do windsurf and I really do enjoy that. I scuba dive, we swim, we cold water swim. Like, we do a lot in the water. One thing I can honestly tell you, so a paddleboard, so a stand-up paddleboard, if you put two adults on a stand-up paddleboard, it becomes immediately extremely unstable.
Right.
That is for sure. If you put two adults and, say, a 7-year-old on a paddleboard, you can't do anything. Right. You'll be tipping, you'll be falling in the water. So the reality is, it was a door that... Is it an intact door? Is it a bit broken? It's a bit broken, isn't it?
You were there. Why don't you tell me?
I can't remember. Anyway, I think there's a piece broken up. I have to be honest, right? I actually don't believe that we would have survived if we had both gotten on that door.
Okay.
I think that he could have fit.
Right. But he was already pretty worse for the wear. He was...
Oh, I see. It would have tipped, and it would not have been a sustainable idea. So you heard it here for the first time. Yes, he could
Once
have
and
fit.
for all.
He could have fit on that door, but it would not have stayed afloat. It wouldn't.
This clip is about the age-old question. Could Leo have survived on that door? Did he really have to die? And while she's fucking sick of that question, she gives a straight answer based on her experience. And she talks about the weight. She has experiences with paddleboards, doing paddleboarding with her family, and she knows how it behaves if you not just put one adult in it, but two, and maybe even a small child. Like, it is unstable. She's really tracking that. And based on this experience, based on her like intuition of these things, of movement and weight, she concludes, no, Leo might have fit on the door, but they wouldn't have survived. It wouldn't have stayed afloat. So there you have your answer. Kate Winslet tracks the sensory, tracks the movement, and she knows what's up. All right, Kate Winslet is Effie Annie, which makes her play first. Then one of the hardest coins quite often is the next animal. So kind of the animals that are in the middle, especially if both of them are in second and third place. So both the other coin, in this case, the info coin. So we had to look very closely to get it right, because as you can see, she hasn't problems with talking. She doesn't need to be kicked to talk. She tells stories just fine. But still, what is up and what is down? What comes first, the consume or the blast? Let's take a look at the clip.
You know, I did have to be really brave, because it was a moment in time, and suddenly I was offered quite big films. I mean, suddenly a lot came my way quite quickly. And I mean, I can't even talk about the size of these paychecks. And I just remember thinking, I'm honestly not ready. I still don't feel like I know how to do this. Yeah. I don't know how to act properly. I need to learn more. I can't do it. I'm not ready for that. And also, I wasn't ready to be that famous. I didn't like that feeling. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I really didn't. And I knew that I wasn't prepared to fuel it. I didn't want to follow suit with something else that was, nothing was going to top Titanic, nothing. Right. And I was just very lucky at the time. I had some very, very good friends around me who would just say, you've got to make sure that you're doing what is making you happy. And at the same time, it was, of course, very difficult to be turning down gigantic films, because I was so lucky to be asked to do them in the first place. Yeah. And I hadn't auditioned for those. I mean, my God, I couldn't believe that.
They just call you up, come and do it.
Yeah. And so it was, I mean, it sounds terribly sort of ungrateful, but I just knew that I needed to look after my desire to learn more. And also I wasn't very experienced. I needed to be out in the world. And
before we talk about the clip, let's remind ourselves of the definition of consume and blast to get really clear on what we're looking for. Savior consume is a random story about self. They take you along, they tend to trail off, and they're forever not ready. In contrast to that, Xavier Blast tells the same story about others. They give lessons, they jump in, and they overextend. In the clip, Kate talks about how she felt immediately after she was in Titanic. After this huge success, she got offered like massive roles in big movies. But how did she feel about that? She felt grateful, yes, but fundamentally she felt not ready. She felt like she hadn't learned enough. She felt like she had also take care of herself and I guess recharge to not overextend. So this is then what she actually did. She doesn't just talk about it, but she's almost a little bit embarrassed for her need to recharge and put on the brakes at that time. But that's what she had to do because she is, yes, save or consume. She didn't feel ready.
Now we have two possible types left on the board. So the last coin that we're going to want to look at is introvert versus extrovert. This will tell us whether Kate is blast or whether she is sleep blast. We may not have yet covered the definitions of introvert versus extrovert in one of these classes, so let's quickly go over those before we jump into this clip. An introvert is always kicked by the tribe to talk and move and do things, and then they'll have outbursts later. On the other side, an extrovert is always tiring themselves out and others, but then they crash later, so they will disappear for long periods of time.
Get a message saying the script's coming your way. Result. Well, at least I know the script is coming. And then they say, well, if you respond to the script, we need you to meet Danny immediately. Can he come to Melbourne tomorrow? So I'm kind of going, at this point, I'm then going, oh my God, what have I done? And actually, during that week, it was the last week of our shoot, the week of the 10th of December, and we were filming for the only time in our shoot 4.5 hours away from Melbourne. So it's like, okay, how am I going to pull off this meeting? Danny couldn't come all the way out to the Outback to meet me, so I literally drove through the night, and I ended up meeting Danny at 7 a.m. in a hotel in Melbourne, and we just talked about the script. And I had this feeling of, I just need to tell him how I would play this part. You know, because I think it's so important, first of all, not to have an ego about these things, but also to be incredibly truthful.
So again, we're seeing a lot more OE and play from Kate here. She is jumping to take this role. She was supposed to be on a break. She then has to drive through the night to meet the director in a hotel at 7 a.m. the next morning and figuring out afterwards, like, how am I going to make this work? So this is not putting the brakes on the front end. This is not what introverts do. This is I'm just going to jump it and do it now and then burn out later. And that's later's problem. And also just listening to her, she talks at 100 miles an hour. I felt breathless listening to her thinking, oh girl, would you just take a breath, please? So again, this is not how blast talk. I mean, just listen to us.
Kate's full type is audio, FENE, play, consume, blast, sleep, and she's a number 4. She really has like one of the best setups for storytelling because she's double observing, so she's balancing out the overview with the details. Then she is savior NE, so she starts out with the intuition, but then she has the masculine SI, so the story is in her head, neatly organized and lined up. She just does the appropriate changes to bring you along. And also consume and blast, she brings you along, but she doesn't overdo it and she does come to the point. So we were really impressed and we really liked listening to her. I said in the beginning that I expected Kate to be a bit prickly and posh, and to my surprise, she really isn't. She's super friendly, very lovable, and very grounded, which everyone around her, with the same surprise that I felt, remarks about her. So she is really savior friends. She's not flexing at all.
Yeah, and also something else that we saw is that she is able to make fun of herself in like a double-decided kind of way. So she's making fun of herself, she's making fun of others, which is something that the savior friends coin are able to do. The flexers just, they don't like that. They usually don't want that. This is something that we've seen Shan talk about in some of her latest Q&As and videos. It's just something that savior friends are much more comfortable doing.
Yeah, they are a bit more troll-like.
They are.
But in case you're still wondering, is Kate really an EJ? We caught her on camera saying the one sentence that you are not allowed to say if you're an EJ.
Why are you always so mean to me?
And also, apparently, I was too fat.
Oh, no.
Isn't it awful? Why were they so mean to me?
They were so mean.
They were so mean. I wasn't even fucking fat.
It's insane.